Back in the 1850s, my ancestors, the seniors, began excavating a huge block of sandstone from the quarry that they owned in Doncaster. Over the next 10 to 20 years, that block of sandstone was converted into a very large mansion-sized dwelling, a sand house hewn from solid rock. Associated with the house was a network of tunnels running under the adjacent ground, and these tunnels were decorated with an amazing array of carvings, and photographs show just what marvellous craftsmanship was used in creating these carvings. Tragically, Doncaster's unique sand house and tunnels have not survived, and their memory is at risk of falling into legend. In 2018, the Sandhouse charity is undertaking quite a large project, and it's all centred upon a brand new play by playwright Peter Spafford.
Apart from actually writing the play, I've also been doing some workshops in the community, both with seniors and also with primary school children. With the primary school children, I told them the story, so they have never heard it before, but are agog at the idea that this world is buried under their feet. He decided that he would build tunnels that went right into the sand, into the cliff of the sand, and that if you went into a certain sand tunnel and walked along, you could look up, and if you were underneath the cemetery, there'd be bones sticking down. Then I asked them to do some writing, actually, and some planning together. If you, as a group, were going to make a sculpture gallery, who would you have as statues? Who would you have statues of? So, I'm going to come round, and then I'd love somebody just to read out the words that you've got on the page. Can we have a volunteer from each group to do that?
I'll have Abby, Safa, my dad, my mum.
Statue of the head teacher.
Favourite animals: monkey, giraffe, pig, lion, dog, turtle, hamster and a dragon.
As far as the senior citizens are concerned, it's very much about trying to capture memories of what the area around the Sandhouse was like. Not necessarily at the time of the Sandhouse itself, because that disappeared around the Second World War, but certainly through the 40s, 50s and 60s.
Boys went in as a playground, as a very unofficial playground.
Last week in a seniors club we met an old gentleman called Stan. So why didn't you go, if I may ask? You were obeying the teachers and not going?
I was obeying my mother.
He was one of these people who would have liked to have gone down there. All his mates went down there, but he didn't because his mum told him not to go. I've been recording older people who do have memories of the Sandhouse, but also with the children as well. And we're hoping to use that in the play, really to sort of transition from one scene to another.
Our director, Olwen May, has been visiting some local amateur dramatics organisations in the Doncaster area, and with her experience and expertise undertaking masterclasses, I suppose, to try and help them along and teach them some new skills.
We've got to explore a lot of the text from the first scene where it's describing the sand and the sand house and the house being moulded and carved from sand. I love how Olwen gave you directions of how to say the lines properly that suited the overall piece.
The whole sort of spirit really of rehearsals so far has been very full of play and fun.
On the thing of stuff was buried, you'll start to dig stuff out, but you're going to do it one at a time. Trestles, planks, ladder. You put stuff down at the same time. We build the house. You're talking about the house. Yeah, okay. So we build the house. Yeah, okay, let's do that moment again. I feel... It's all going to work brilliantly. Don't look so worried.
In addition to the play, we're also carrying out various wraparound activities, such as an exhibition here in the foyer at Cast Theatre. We've carried out some guided walks around the site of the former sand house. There'll be some illustrated talks about the story, and we're doing some sand art workshops in the children's library. All these different events and activities are aimed at trying to bring the story of the sand house to people in a range of interesting and hopefully inspiring ways.
The rest of them have gone to Slaggy.
It's ambitious in the sense of the scope of the piece, that we've chosen to tell a story that spans 4 different times, really, with only 3 actors and some ladders and some sand.
Really what I wanted to do was tell this story in a really visual way, because we're dealing with a really visual subject. This is a man who made art. He made beautiful things out of sand, out of sandstone.
But I always say, well, we obviously we can't have that back, but what we can do is recreate that in our imaginations with the play. The play is a way of raising it out of the ground.
Acquainted with this woman.
I always wanted to do it in Traverse, which means that we've got audience down 2 sides, because I wanted it to feel like a tunnel. And I really love it because you've got these kind of long diagonal playing spaces, you know, but a bit like being in the round, you can't play, the actors can't get too close together because then it excludes the audience completely. So part of me is going, oh yeah, that's a nice bit of acting, and I think that, and part of me is going, if I stand here, no, I can't really see, right, okay, stop, you've got to move. So we're constantly having to think about balancing the space, as well as where we put these big bits of tackle, which are ladders and planks and things.
Go away! We've got supplies! We're here for long haul!
The play Sandhouse opens on Friday the 8th of June. We've invited a whole range of guests to join us that evening. Some of these people will be ideally placed to help us to spread the word to the wider public.
I didn't know anything about the sand house before. It's an interesting story and it's woven into a really good play.
It's lovely the way the sand can become the champagne and the tea and so on.
Probably just be me.
We were there, we were in the sand house, we were in those tunnels and in the catacombs.
He's probably thinking the same about you.
I thought the play was brilliant, the story is amazing, and I think it's incredibly sort of inspiring. It inspires creativity, it inspires initiative.
Generations of school children in years to come will learn about the Sandhouse through this project.
It does make people think about how in the future we want to make sure that our heritage is preserved.
Now, don't shilly-shally. No one slacks here.
Through the Sandhouse charity, we aim to inspire artistic and heritage projects that have some sort of link to the Sandhouse. I think it was a great example of what the Sandhouse charity can achieve in the future.